Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, I will be showing to you guys why I believe that folks that live across the southern, southeastern, south central, and northeastern and mid-Atlantic regions of the United States should be preparing for a rather snowy winter potentially. Now this doesn't necessarily mean that the winter from beginning to end will be full of snow, but rather the evidence that I'm going to show you is pointing towards several spots in the winter that will be rather snowy and several large winter storms, potentially comparable to the size of the 2016 one in the Mid-Atlantic, 2009, 2010 as well. A very potentially a snowy pattern will be setting up into this winter, and I have some cool things that I'm basing it off of that I want to show you guys. So first off is I want to establish kind of where I got this, I guess, point from, how I came to this point. So first off, the most important thing is, if you've been watching my videos for the past few weeks, you've been seeing that I start them all off by discussing the ENSO. Now, if you just want to go ahead and skip to the point where I talk about these storms, scroll forward in the video probably a few minutes, and I will do that, and I'll be showing you images of snowstorms that have occurred in similar years. But I want to show first, for those folks that are wondering, how I correlated certain years and similarities to this upcoming one, and that's because of this ENSO. So ENSO is an area of water. It's called the El Nino Southern Oscillation. As you can see on this map, here's probably a better picture. Here you can see Australia, Indonesia, right? Papua New Guinea, here's Mexico, Central America, South America, and in between, here's the Pacific Ocean, and whether or not these waters are warm, cool, is an El Nino versus a La Nina, respectively. So if it's 0.5 degrees or warmer, it's considered an El Nino, which is what we are in right now. If it's negative 0.5 or cooler, it's a La Nina, and anywhere in between is a neutral. This year, again, we're heading into an El Nino. That's something you have to know. Notice that the colors are vividly warm, right? So there's no question about that. Now, where the thing does start getting a little bit tricky is, this is a lot of information that you could identify and analyze on your own. If you guys want, there's a PowerPoint here that the Climate Prediction Center updates every second Thursday of each month, and you can see there's a lot of information here. However, that's honestly, I'm not even going to lie, some of this stuff is even above my head, some very meteorological concepts. The most important thing you have to understand is that basically we're heading towards an El Nino, and you can see that they're pretty much favoring it, almost 95% chance through the winter, and the intensity of this guy is also pretty strong. So notice that according to this group of models here, it shows a potential almost 3, one of the models shows almost a 3 degrees above average. I assure you that's rather not going to happen. I would say that for now, we are most likely looking at an El Nino between 1.5 and 2 degrees above average. So remember, 0.5 is the initial threshold for an El Nino, so we are in a moderate one if we were to be anywhere between a 1.5 and 2. Anything above a 2 is considered strong, and anything below a 1 is considered weak. And you can see what these models show on average is somewhere in between 1.5 and 2 before weakening off. Now, this is another group of models that I personally like a lot more. You can see this was updated literally today, the 25th of September. And notice this shows us already being above 1.5, so at a moderate El Nino, potentially weakening into September, remaining September and October, and then kind of never recovering and staying between that 1 and 1.5. And maybe, anywhere between 1 and 2 degrees. That's most likely what's going to happen. So potentially a strong one, but more likely it seems now a moderate one. Now this matters because a weak versus a moderate versus a strong have all different impacts. And you could see that on the Climate Prediction Center, here we have a back tracing of several years prior of what different years have had. So right, this is 2011, and it's 3 months average for January, February, March, and you can see this goes on and on and on, and you can see we've had several La Nina, neutral, El Nino periods, including the 2015, 2016 historically strong one there at 2.6, which was incredible. I don't believe we're entering into that, but notice we also had 3 years of straight La Nina, and that is also a rarity. So we're just kind of coming off of that, and you can see we are already in an El Nino. It's not highlighted red, even though it should be. They probably just haven't updated that. We could go back all the way to 1950 with this. So basically, I thought to myself, okay, so we know we're going to probably be anywhere between 1.5 and 2 degrees Fahrenheit above average. And you can see that going back, there hasn't been that many El Ninos. There's been obviously a few, quite a few, but I wanted to hone it down more, not just El Nino. I wanted to compare specific years that have had similar strength as what's forecasted this year. Now that's a large caveat here, right? If the forecast is wrong, then all of this video that I have going and all this evidence kind of gets put away, as it's not going to be valid. But I have reason to believe we are almost in October now. I think we're going to be anywhere between a 1 and a 2 degrees above average. The last time that happened, you might think, was 2018, 2019. I didn't use that one because, no, you could see it was weaker. It never even reached 1 degree, and we are already warmer than that. I didn't want to use 2015, 2016 either because, well, to be frank, 2.6, that's a very strong one. I don't think we're doing that this year. So the first year that we have to compare is 2009, 2010, right? I'll show you what I took from that year in just a second, but that's basically what I did with all these years, right? So 2002, 2003 was another one, 1.3, 1.1, right? I did not choose 2004 or 5 or 7, any of these years because they were just too weak. 2002, 2003, I did choose. Again, I ignored this one. This one was just too strong of an El Nino. I chose this one because this one was just kind of in that range that I believe we will be in. So I just chose those years based off nothing else and looked. What are the aspects of those? You know, how about the winter storms? Where were they the worst? And did they have any trend to them? And you may be surprised, but they absolutely had several trends, and that's what I want to share with you right now. So this is what I wanted to show you guys. Now, you may look at this and be just a little lost. What is this thing? Well, basically, this is a giant database that the National Weather Service has of snowstorms, the biggest snowstorms. And you can go back and track individual dates of all these storms. You can see select snowstorm. It is given by date right here. And they have different regions: the Northeast, Northern Rockies and Plains, your Ohio Valley, South, Southeast, and Upper Midwest. So yes, they don't track systems or snows. They don't give ratings for the Southwest, the South Central here, and the Northwest. They only give it to these regions. Why? I don't know. Now, another thing. These dots, these are only, I guess I could say, here's the key, right? So 2 to 6 inches is that gray. Those red is 24 inches plus. So these are big snowstorms. You know, they only rank the ones that deserve to be ranked. And out of the ones that deserve to be ranked, there's a category of 1 through 5. A category 1 is one that's obviously a disruptive one. Probably you get one of those every few years. Nothing that big of a deal. Now, if you start getting toward category 3, 4, and 5, 5 is something that usually happens once, maybe every few decades. 4 is something that happens maybe once a decade. 3, you could get maybe twice a decade, and then 2 happens probably a few times in a given decade. And so, yes, these are only the big snowstorms. And I want to show you, out of all those years, right? So this 2009, 2010, I believe personally, it is the best analog year for this upcoming winter, not only because of it has almost the same exact El Nino values, it is a strengthening El Nino, and it also was one that was weak to moderate. There are also other factors like the QBO and whatnot that kind of make me want to feel that this is probably the winter that we're going to be most similar to. And I want to show you the snowstorms of that year and where they targeted the most in particular. So notice that season started off December 18th through the 19th with almost a category 4 for the Southeast ranking and a category 1 for the Northeast. So for the Mid-Atlantic, this would be a 4 because that's technically part of the Virginia's part of the Southeast here according to this graphic. And do note that we had massive snowfall totals here. So this was a snowstorm that occurred during during a weak to moderate, specifically more a moderate El Nino, right? So that's one. But that's just one. So let's see what the other snowstorms of this year did. Notice it was a 1 right here that gave a category of 2 for the South, 2 for the Southeast, and 1 for the Ohio Valley. So not a monster storm, but definitely one that dropped quite a bit and left some impacts, right? So these gray dots, that's 2 to 6 inches. Those white, that's 6 to 12. So, it may not seem like it's that much because of these colorations, but again, these are only for the biggest snowstorms. So, we know how the Southeast sometimes reacts to just a few inches of snow, right? Let alone these amounts here. So, this was another characteristic, right? A southern slider. Let's keep going because there's so many of these storms I want to show you, and I just want you to pick up on the details of this. Now, there were other storms that I saw here, but for the most part, the biggest ones that were ranked category 2 and above were for the South and for the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic region. Notice, this was literally days after, right? So 27th, 31st. This is another one, 29th, 30th, almost at the same time happening. You could see that there was yet another system going on that also dropped quite a bit of a snowfall across, again, very similar regions. And then we keep going. February 4th to 8th, yet another mid-Atlantic monster. You could see potentially or getting up to 4 on that scale, which is, again, something that happens maybe, once a decade on a maximum. So an absolute monster of a system on the heels of one that already was ranked a 3. Or was that a 4, the first one that I showed? Yeah, 4. So 4 ranked snowstorms in the mid-Atlantic, right? And then, of course, everywhere else the snow is also pretty significant. We keep going, though, because that's not the end. Just a few days after, on the heels of that, we have another ranked 2 for the southeast, and you can see for the northeast, more snowfall. So again, you can see why I'm saying that the northeast and southern United States really had to be prepared for these snows. Now, up here, obviously, there was also a bit of snow, but that's more usual for these areas. This, I believe, was one of the snowiest winters for the for the mid-Atlantic. I think there were some areas approaching 70 to 80 in their totals. Now, days later, 8th through 11th, while this one was going up here, there was another one, smaller one, towards the south, which was ranked a 4. So again, one that happens maybe every 10 years. You could see Dallas was anywhere between 6 and 12 inches of snow there, some areas around it. So really, really substantial. And then you could see the snow was all the way almost into Florida, with Georgia picking up widespread amounts of almost 6 inches there in Atlanta. So this was definitely a monster snowstorm for the south. You guys are seeing the trend, aren't you? The northeast and south getting impacted. Now, days later, again, this is another feature with this winter, is that there was just so many of them here. 10th through the 13th of February, yet another once-in-a-decade system. I guess with two once-in-a-decade storms in one winter. That does sometimes happen. And you can see Dallas, again, getting clobbered, potentially in some areas well over a foot of snow. A lot of the southeast there, 2 to 6 inches, in some areas even more. So, again, an absolute monster of a storm. 21st through the March 1st, you can see that for the Northeast, this was a ranked 4. So a really, really incredible system in terms of the amount of snow it dropped for the Northeast. Again, once-in-a-decade system. And this time it was, again, more of the Northeast, not necessarily the South getting impacted. So that was that for the 2009-2010 season. But notice that the biggest storms of that season were centered mainly across the Northeast, South, and the Mid-Atlantic. Now, that could have just been a freak year, right? Maybe some other weak El Nino years, weak to moderate El Nino years, proved different. Well, let's see. 2002, 2003 was another year. And you can see December 23rd, 2002, December 24th. Sorry, 6th, 2002. And you could see, again, this wasn't nearly as big of a system, but it still dropped snow across the south central here, right? So it was ranked a 1, so not incredible, but definitely a storm. And in the northeast, a 2, right? So again, not a massive system, but one that, again, targeted very similar areas that other storms targeted during these years. And again, this was a moderate El Nino year. This is another one that occurred in January of that winter season. You can see it was ranked a 2, so nothing incredible, but definitely one that dropped quite a bit of snow, and many areas did pick up over 2 feet of snow. So not nothing, not nothing. Arkansas, you can see, Tennessee, some areas got anywhere from 2 to 6 inches, so that's quite a bit of snow as well. Now, from February 14th through the 18th, we saw, again, a very similar system setup as we did in 2009, 2010, with the Mid-Atlantic getting absolutely hammered and into the Northeast, right? So you can see the Southeast getting a rank of 3, mainly affecting Virginia there and areas surrounding, which is how this map is segregated. It includes Virginia as the Southeast here. The Northeast is a 4, so again, something that happens maybe once a decade. And again, you can see that system absolutely clobbered them. So again, there's a trend. These systems seem to really, really drop a lot of snow across kind of the eastern third of the country during these years. And then you can see it's been a while, right? 2003 was our last week of moderate El Nino. And then the one after that was way back in 1987. And we're starting off strong. January 21st, 24th, with a 4 ranked for the Southeast. Another massive system targeting the Northeast and Southeast. Into January of that same year, just a few days later, another one targeting the Southeast there. So this one by itself isn't that massive, but coming on the heels of that one, that proves a lot of impacts. Here's another one of that same winter season year in February. Now, this one wasn't massive, but it still dropped. You can see a swath of 12 to 18 inches across New Jersey, Northern Virginia, Maryland. So again, even though the ones on this scale are still storms that are not necessarily beasts, and due to the fact that this is a database for large systems. This isn't, you're not going to see a system that dropped 6 inches of snow on here being ranked. It's only ones that drop feet or more. So again, another significant one in February targeting the Northeast. And this is one in April that also targeted, but mainly kind of more of the Ohio Valley. But again, very similar structure, kind of coming from the south to the east. You guys are seeing the pattern here, right? There are multiple systems in any given year with a moderate El Nino that really target these areas, specific areas. Now, obviously, we could see snowstorms that are further north, just like here in December of 1987. So this is now, because this was 2 consecutive moderate El Ninos in a row from 86, 87, and 87, 88. And you can see here, there was one that still targeted the south, so that's consistent, right? The south, southeast, and northeast, but it also dropped quite a bit of snow further north. You can see it was ranked a 3. But during this year, there were also, you could see plenty of systems that drove snow even further south. Oklahoma got hammered with 18 to 24 inches on some areas. This was a ranked 5 for the south. So a storm that happens maybe every 20 to 30 years. And again, during a moderate El Nino. And again, the Northeast didn't go unscathed. It still got some snow there. And you can see that in that same year, same winter season in February, we saw yet another system across the Northeast and Ohio Valley that dropped quite a bit of snow. Not as much snow with this winter season for the Mid-Atlantic, but the South and Northeast got what the Mid-Atlantic missed. So now, next one after 88 was way back in 69, right? And notice right there, boom, we're starting off the season strong there with well, not the season. This one didn't have as many winter storms, 1968, 1969 winter season. But you can see it had one across the Northeast. It really didn't have many systems in the first place. So, but one of the few that did occur was in the Northeast. And you can see here's another one, 1969, just a few days later, that kind of occurred towards the southern United States. So again, it really likes to target the Northeast and the South. And this is just a few days later with a monster targeting the Northeast. This was a ranked 5 for the Northeast, so something that happens again every generation, maybe once. Widespread amounts of 2 feet plus, 18 to 24 inches. These, incredible snowfall amounts here for the New England area. And you can see there was still another one in February through March of 1969, again targeting the southeast, kind of northeast. Obviously, further north and west, there was also snow, but the biggest amounts laid towards the north and east. Another season was 1963, 1964, and you can see in December, we started off strong with another one of these systems targeting south, southeast, Ohio Valley, and the northeast. Just a few days later, a snowstorm that started on New Year's Eve and extended into the first few days of the new year, 1963, 1964, again, targeting the south, southeast, and up into the northeastern United States. And look how far some of these snowfall amounts here got. We had 12 to 18 snowfall amounts in southern Mississippi, right? And in Alabama. I don't know how this thing was just ranked a 2 for the southeast. I'm guessing because you could see it lay right on the dividing line between the south, central, or just the south and the southeast. So I guess the impacts weren't as great. But if you were to combine these two, this would have been ranked like a 3 or a 4 for any of the given of these regions. So again, you see the consistency that I'm talking about. Every moderate week, a strong week, or moderate El Nino has had a consistent pattern of dropping very large snowstorms across the southern United States, southeastern United States, northeastern United States, and a little bit of eastern Ohio Valley. And that has been very, very, very consistent. And you can see this winter season was nothing different. And it didn't end there. In January of 1964, we saw yet another one. Again, this one targeting maybe a little bit more of the Ohio Valley. But in the northeast, didn't go unscathed. Neither did the Mid-Atlantic. Very, very heavy snowfall amounts yet again. And this is, again, another snowstorm of that same season that occurred deep, deep, deep into the south, targeting, again, cities like Dallas. You can see, again, getting very, very heavily targeted. And again, just a few days later, we have another one targeting the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic. Again, by itself, nothing too incredible. I mean, it's a system that probably occurs twice or 2 or 3 times every decade. But it's on top of already the heavy snow that has fallen with the previous ones I showed you of that winter season. So those are basically all the years I wanted to show you because we haven't had that many moderate El Ninos in the past. A lot of them have just gone, strong or stayed weak. So, but out of the years that, did stay moderate, we've had incredible evidence that a lot of these storms like to target the south, southeast, northeast, and the mid-Atlantic region. So I don't believe, that this year will be any different. And even for years that did go into the strong El Nino category, like we might this year, for example, 2016, they still still saw absolute massive snowstorms in 2016 across the Mid-Atlantic with Winter Storm Jonas. It was Snow Megadon in January of 2016. I know New York City almost got 30 inches of snow in that one snowstorm, so there's no shortage of that, which is why I believe folks across the south, southeast, northeast should really be preparing for a strong winter, snowy winter potentially this year, and to not get caught off guard, because history shows we have a lot of things pointing towards a very snowy winter. Alright guys, that is basically it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next episode. See ya. Bye.